It's just there are certain immutable facts of life, and those were painfully obvious on that debate stage. And the president just doesn't seem to he hasn't come to grips with it. He's not winning this race. He's more likely, if you just look at the data and talk to people around the country, political people around the country, it's more likely that he'll lose by a landslide than win narrowly.
Oops, David Axelrod. In the meantime, we get this today from Joe Biden. Are you ready? This is not going to be a fun one either. It's short, but it's kind of the same thing over and over again.
With your help, I know we have your help. With my help, helping us working together, we're going to get a hell of a lot done for the American people. And we're going to make sure these things are... So anyway, I guess if I stand here long enough, all those folks in the back are going to die of sunstroke.
What did he just say there? Let's go back a few.
We're going to get a hell of a lot done for the American people. And we're going to make sure these things are... So anyway.
I mean, that's our president. You can see Jill, she's like, but she's also like, Nurse Jill's right here with you, Joe. You're answering all the questions. I'm so proud of you, Joey. Did you see that she had to help him off the stage at the debate? Trump just walked off on his own. There was Nurse Jill walking around like an elderly grandparent. Meantime, the Wall Street Journal today writing about cackling Kamala. Hold on. Excuse me. Kamala. They're asking tonight, who's afraid of Kamala Harris? It seems to be a big part of the emerging Team Biden game plan, the Journal says. The theme, go with Joe or you'll get Kamala. Remember I told you this earlier in the show if you were listening? He's threatening Democrats. If I get out, you got her. Biden aide told donors the money would go to Miss Harris if Biden dropped out. This was meant as a threat, the Journal editorial board said today, not a promise. See that? It's a threat. Much of the party's base would revolt if Harris were denied the nomination. Here's the Michigan Democrat Party Black Caucus. Michigan Democrat Party Black Caucus says, quote, I would be angry if you tried to leapfrog over a vice president. Again, the Journal says, talk about a scare tactic. They also said, who would have thought Biden chose a vice president who would be so unpopular that she would be used as insurance against Mr. Biden being forced out? Insurance! Wow! Wow! That's some policy, huh? All right, 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. If you were, I entitled this segment, Who's on First, right? You know, the old Abbott and Costello bit. Because who is in charge if Joe gives it up, which he's not going to give it up. Not only, I pray and hope that Joe doesn't give it up. He's the best chance. Help me, Obi-Wan. Although people say that he's still got a shot, and it's true. A vegetative president, Joe Biden, could still beat Trump if he shoots himself in the foot. Okay? And I'm going to be talking to you about some other things, too, with including who do you think Trump needs to pick for his vice president? Now more than ever, that's important. But if you were a Democrat, who would you want to replace Joe Biden in the race for president right now? If you were a Democrat, who would you want to replace Biden with in the race for president? And number two, who are you most afraid of running against President Trump? Who are you most afraid of running against President Trump? Is it Biden? Is it cackling Kamala? Is it Gavin Newsom? Look, I got to be honest with you. I'm most afraid of Gavin Newsom. Not because he's a good politician per se, but because he's handsome. The wine moms, their panties are up in a bunch. Oh, he's so cute. The stupid wine moms of the suburbs, they would vote for that idiot. It wouldn't matter that he's Nancy Pelosi's nephew. It wouldn't matter that he is super wealthy or that he has a 44% approval rating in the state of California, in a super deep blue state. He still is not even getting half the, polling well at all. And the tens of billions, I think it's $70 or $80 billion budget deficit, the crime surge all over the constant high crime in his former city that he was the mayor of in San Francisco, or is by his aunt there, Nancy. So I think he's the biggest threat, not because he's a good politician, but because he's a dirtbag and he's a slime ball and he's really good at what he does, and he's a real attractive man, and the women will love that, and that's kind of important. So if you were a Democrat, who would you want to replace Joe? And who are you most afraid of running against President Trump? 800-288-WBAP. Maybe it should be Joe Biden that we're most afraid of, even though he's a vegetable. I'm being serious. I just don't know. But I still, in my instinctual heart of hearts, want Joe to be the president, running against, want him to be running against Trump. I think that's our best way to win. Because like 70, it went from like half the country or 60% of the country saying he's too old and he's got mental problems, now to 74% after the debate. Three out of every 4 Americans say that Joe cannot be the president. He's not there anymore. 3 out of 4 Americans. With the sitting freaking president of the United States of America. And I think the only ones that would vote for him in a coffin, like one of his supporters said yesterday at the rally, and Whoopi, I played for you earlier, said if he poops his pants all the time and has to be rolled across the street, I'd still vote for him. I believe that. But I don't think the middle of the road people are going to do that as much as they would have if he would have been cloistered away and hidden from all this. Trey and Duncanville, you're on. Let's see, you are listening. Thank you for listening to WBAP. Sorry.
Yes, sir. I've been a caregiver for my grandparents and my mother, and they all exhibited a lot of the same signs that Joe Biden did with Parkinson's and dementia. One thing I learned about Joe Biden, I don't know if you knew this, but he had brain surgery.
2 aneurysms.
30 years ago.
Yeah, two aneurysms.
Yes, and that can lead to stroke and everything, and I think he's far worse than what the media is leading us on to. And I would not be surprised if he doesn't make it to Election Day. I don't think he's going to make it to January, to be quite honest.
Wow.
Because
you think he's going to die, or you think he's going to become totally incapacitated where he can't even do anything in front of a camera anymore, like he's a vegetable? Vegetable.
I have a feeling it'll be one or the other. If he goes comatose, I don't think he's going to live much longer after that. My mother went into that. She passed away recently, and I had to endure all that. And she was comatose for like a day or two, and then it just kind of went off in the Never Land and died. And it's real heart wrenching. As a human being, I just feel sorry for his family.
Well, wait. Do you feel sorry for his family when they're pimping him and keeping him running in this thing and saying he's awesome? And Joey, here. Listen. Let me see if you feel sorry for the family after this.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew
all right, hold on. You knew all the answers, she said. So what do you think? I mean, does that sound like somebody you should feel sorry for?
Well, yes, because she's living in denial for whatever reason. And it's
Wait,
really
is she
hard.
living in denial, or is she pimping him to stay in power?
Well, it may be a combination of both. It's hard to accept when you see a family member go through that. Some of my family members got real mean and combative.
Yes,
I never saw that side of them before till toward the very end. It was just kind of shocking. And then my mother, she just kind of drifted off quietly and didn't have much to do with me. And so I like I say, I think it's kind of hard on them emotionally and spiritually to kind of deal with this. I don't wish anything.
Papa, what would you do if this was your dad? I know it's impossible to put yourself in the exact shoes, but I mean, would you keep him in there, or would you? I mean,
no, sir, I would not. No, I think for his betterment, he really should just resign and get as much medical care.
Let me
not only for the good of the family, but for the good of the country and the entire free world.
Trey, let me play this for you. You talked about anger, flashes of anger that you would see in your family members with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. Let me play this and see if this is similar to what you're talking about here from this morning with the president on Morning Joe.
not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance, number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce the president. Challenge me at the convention.
Kind of yelling that, watch. What is that? Is that something you're talking about, or is it?
Yes, sir. That's a clear signal when he's saying "pal" in that tone. I've seen that happen with several people, and when they talk about that derogatory tone with words like that, there's a telltale sign. And I just think that he's just in really bad shape, mentally and physically. And
all right, now
it's just heartbreaking.
Who would you want to replace Joe with if you're a Democrat? Would you keep him in there if you were?
Well, first of all, I'm not a Democrat.
But who would you want? I can flip it on you and just say, who are you most afraid of running against Trump? Who's the one that could actually be a serious threat?
I'm not afraid of any of them because all their records are abysmal. So, bring them on, as they say. I don't think it really matters who the Democrats have. I think they're going to be a disaster against Trump. And Trump would be better off just not to say anything on TV.
Yes. Well, I mean, he's not going to. He shouldn't hide. I mean, he did an interview, but as long as he's not nasty about it, is that fair?
Well, to an extent, yes, but we know he can kind of break loose sometimes. So I'm a little leery of Trump sometimes. I love the man. I think he's the world of him, but sometimes he can't help himself. I'm concerned about that.
Thanks for your call, brother. Appreciate you. All right, coming up next, I want to get into this. Lawmakers are considering the 25th Amendment to remove Biden. Fox News senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram is reporting on it. Murmurs through Capitol Hill to invoke the 25th Amendment on Biden. I want to ask you if you think Republicans should support invoking the 25th Amendment on President Biden. And do you think Democrats will? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. That's coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. And you'll hear another cut of audio for Nurse Jill angrily reacting to a question about Joe taking a cognitive exam. That's coming up next as well on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.
Have you been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinson's, or anything like that might explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences?
Look, I had before, I was feeling so badly before the debate. When I came back, they tested me for, I thought maybe I had COVID.
Nikki Haley, one of the Republican candidates, is calling for mental competency tests for those politicians over the age of 75. What do you think about that?
Ridiculous.
Would your husband ever take one of those?
I mean, we haven't even discussed, we would never even discuss something like that.
That's Nurse Jill. And there you have it, y'all. Nurse Jill in denial. That was in the Republican primary before Nikki Haley conceded and would eventually endorse President Trump. Now, we're going to get into who Trump should pick as his next VP. As his VP coming up next at 10:30. Do not miss that. But first, lawmakers, according to Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill, he's the best Capitol Hill reporter that we may ever have, and on Fox News, and he says that lawmakers are considering the 25th Amendment to remove Biden. Pergram says that murmurs throughout Capitol Hill to invoke the 25th to remove President Biden from office. Do you actually think Republicans should support invoking the 25th Amendment on President Biden? And do you think Democrats will? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now, lines wide open. I do not want one Republican saying anything about the 25th Amendment. Not one. And Chip, what's his name? Chip what's his name? From Central and South Texas. What's Chip's last name? The conservative Republican from South and Central, Chip Roy. Chip Roy mentioned the 25th Amendment or something of that nature the other day, and I'm like, would you please shut up? Are you trying to get the Democrats to win the election? Shut up and don't tell them a dang thing what to do. Watch them implode and do what Trump's been doing. He's got the right idea. Shut up and stay out of their way. Why would you stick your freaking foot out there to insert yourself in the middle of something that's a bonfire to your advantage? Shut up and get out of the way. Shut up. Unless you want a Democrat to win the election, shut up. That's what I say, Chip Roy. I like him 9 times out of 10, but shut up. What are you doing? What in God's name are you? Well, I want to get involved and mess things up for us. Shut up. Censor him for talking. Shut up. All right. Number 2, do I think Democrats will do the 25th Amendment? No way. They're not going to do the 25th Amendment. You have to have half the cabinet and Kamala to invoke it. And then guess what else? I'll double check. It's you have to have, I think, 3/4 of Congress, 2/3 or 3/4 of Congress. Would you see if you can Google that for 25th Amendment? How many congressmen have to, like, what's the vote that, how many Congress people do they need to say yes, 25th Amendment? Because half the cabinet and the vice president have to pull the trigger, but then I think it's either 2/3 or 3/4 of the Senate and House have to vote for it. See what you get on that. We're checking right now with that. Because I know it's either 3/4 or 2/3. It's not going to happen. You will not get 3/4 or 2/3. And if any Republicans voted for it, shame on you. Let this man implode. Say, I'm not getting into it. I refuse to get into it. It is not my decision. It is theirs. Stand back. Anybody that wants to get involved, anybody that wants to vote for the 25th Amendment, even if it is pulled, which it won't be. Can you imagine what will happen to Kathleen Kamala if she invokes the 25th Amendment? Majority of the House, I thought it was 2/3 or 3/4. It's just the House. Majority of both houses in Congress, the majority. Okay, does it say 2/3 or 3/4 majority? Okay, just as majority. I swear to you, it was either 2/3 or 3/4. I'll double check that coming up next. Here's the thing. Shut up, and they're not going to do it anyway, so shut up. That's what I say, all right? And if all else fails, shut up. Let them implode. They're doing a great job of it. All right, next, who do you want to pick, Trump to pick as his vice presidential candidate? I'll tell you my thought, and I'll tell you what a poll from the Daily Mail says on that. Coming up next, Chris Kroc Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3, 800-288 WBAP, 800-288-9227. All right, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288 WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Here's the big question tonight. Who do you want Trump to pick as his vice presidential candidate? 800-288 WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Lots of people are on the list. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think it should be Tim Scott. Here's the only caveat. Tim Scott cannot be the actual president after this. He's just not... He doesn't have it in him. He doesn't have that visceral, fighter in him. It was so funny because I totally agree with Trump before he even said it. I agreed 100%. Tim Scott, when he was running for president, did not fight hard enough for himself. He was like a pushover. Like, remember that time when John McCain was being interviewed or had a town hall and he was running for president and he said, well, I think Obama would make a good president. And there was audible gasps like, what are you, what are you, stupid? He was kind of like, well, my friends, I'm going to be a nice guy. And that's who Tim Scott is. Look, let me tell you something. Tim Scott is a man of character. Tim Scott is a very honorable, evangelical Christian who comes from an amazing story. He's a wonderful man, and I'm so happy that he's one of our senators, and I'm so happy that he's being looked at for Trump's vice president. But Trump was right when he said that Tim Scott fights harder for me than he did himself when he was running, and that's exactly accurate. And that's why Tim Scott can't be the president. So if Tim Scott will be the vice president and then in 4 years they run and he doesn't get the nomination because he's not going to be the fighter that we need, then I'm fine with that. Personally, I think Tim Scott would be a great 8-year vice president. He's just the man. He's got the temperament, the character, the honor, and everything. He needs to pick Tim Scott is what I say. Doug Burgum can be the head of something, and I know he does a good job defending the president and he's milquetoast. I suppose he might be a good vice presidential candidate because he's also the yin to the yang in Trump, just like Pence was. And he's also the yin to the... Tim Scott would be the yin to the yang also of Trump. You know, a compliment. Okay? J.D. Vance would be... look, I like the guy a lot, but no. He would do nothing for us. He would alienate... I'm just thinking about how do we win? And I think somebody who is the yin to the yang, you know, the opposite of Trump, who is stable, and people will be like, okay, if something happens to Trump, then this guy will be just fine. He's a little bit more moderate, or at least a mainstream type, and he's a nice guy. That's Tim Scott. I swear to you, it is. Doug Burgum's an unknown from a state. Nobody knows if he's from South Dakota, North Dakota, or what it is, and they don't care. Which person on the list, and I'll go through the list and everything, but who would you like to see as Trump for him to pick as vice president? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. And by the way, as you're calling in, chime in right now. Line's wide open, 800-288-WBAP. Who do you want Trump to pick for his vice president? Here's what Trump said tonight about that on Hannity.
There is a short list, and on the short list, we hear names like Senator Rubio, Senator Tim Scott, Senator J.D. Vance, Governor Burgum. Are those reports accurate? Are there other people maybe people aren't paying attention to? And when do you think you'll announce that?
Well, you know, we started off with a lot of people. We have a lot of good people. As they call it, we have a great bench in the Republican Party. The names that you mentioned, absolutely, they're under consideration. And I haven't made final decision, but I have some ideas as to where we're going. And a little bit, you know, we wanted to see what they're doing, to be honest, because, you know, it might make a difference. I don't know. I'm not sure that it would. But there are those that say Trump's waiting until he finds out what's going to happen with crooked Joe Biden. And we'll see what happens with Biden. But, you know, I think probably within the next week and a half, probably sometime. I'd love to do it during the convention. My people say that's a little complicated. You know, in the old days, they would announce the vice president during the convention. Today, with modern day technology, you can't do things that you could have done 50 years ago very easily. But probably a little before the convention, but not much. It could even be during the convention that we'd do it. I'd love to do it during the convention. I think it would be a very interesting build-up and important for the convention. It would make it even more exciting. It's going to be amazing in Milwaukee.
If you announced it right now on this show, I think it would make a lot of news. I'm just saying.
Well, if I did it, I'd love to do it with you. But we'll be announcing soon, and I think everybody's going to be very, very happy. The choice will be very, very good. It's going to be a great vice president, meaning a person that can do a fantastic job as president, because you always have to think of that first. And then second, somebody that helps you get elected. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, there's Trump in his own words tonight. That's on my Twitter feed at Chris Crock Show. You got to follow me at Chris Crock Show, ChrisKrock. Okay, the Wall Street Journal chiming in on this, and they're saying Glenn Youngkin, Virginia governor, he would be really, really good. He'd be that yin to the yang. He's also very stable. But Pompeo, they're saying, no, he needs to be the DNI director, or well, actually, Ratcliffe is going to be the DNI director again and needs to be. But Pompeo can be Secretary of State again because he was incredible at that. They're also saying on the short list, Burgum also brings executive experience and history of business success and knowledge about the economy. Rubio, more familiar national figure, but no executive experience as a senator. That doesn't necessarily matter because he's just vice president. You know what I mean? He's not the president. J.D. Vance for MAGA people, but that would not be good. compared to the other one. So here's what. So they don't give you the exact one, but they give you some hints. There's a poll that came out today from the Daily Mail. J.D. Vance only got 4% in this Daily Mail poll today. Doug Burgum got 4%, probably because he's just an unknown. Tim Scott and Ben Carson popular. They also say that Trump has reportedly moved to only 3 in his final. Rubio, Burgum, and J.D. Vance. Boy, Rubio's been quiet, hasn't he? That might mean he's going to be it. Rubio would be absolutely fine, but he'd have to move because you can't have 2 people from the same state. And that's what Dick Cheney did. He moved, so they can do that too if they want. Trump Jr., Don Trump Jr., and Charlie Kirk have been promoting Vance. That's a bad move. He won't pull anybody in. Kellyanne Conway, who did talk to the president as recently as last week, she said on Fox News earlier today, I caught that. She's argued that Rubio would do best at bringing in a key demographic vote groups into the Trump coalition. Interesting. He'd come a long way from the water bottle moment. Do you remember that? The water bottle moment? In the middle of his Republican response to the presidential address when, who was it? I can't remember which one it was, Obama. And he had his magic water bottle moment, or his sad water bottle moment when he had parched throat. He just stopped and went over and thought nobody would see him get his water bottle. That's one of my most favorite political moments in television of all time, the water bottle moment. And then Trump, do you remember when Trump made fun of him in a rally? And he's like, ugh, and he had a water bottle flying all over the place, and he whipped it over his shoulder, and the crowd went wild. But wouldn't that be funny if he's his vice president, which is fine. And they'll show that in a political hit ad against him, but it won't matter because that's just, people know who Rubio is. He's a nice guy and such. But I like his positions on things for the most part, too. He would be just fine, my friends. How about you? Who do you want Trump to pick as his next VP candidate? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. The convention is coming in a couple weeks. And that's when he's going to announce it. Crazy, 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 y'all. Okay, up next, this is going to really rock your world up. There is a brand new connection to Joe Biden's White House physician who has been mysteriously quiet and says, oh, everything's fine. Joe's great. He doesn't need any more tests. Everything's great. Could he be compromised? Could the White House physician and a longtime friend of Nurse Jill, could he be compromised? Through Biden riches, did he get some of that money? All that's next on the Chris Kroc Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, let's do a little comparison from Joe, and then we'll go to Trump. This was today.
I'm not letting up, Joe. I am not letting up a little bit. And by the way, France registered, look, you talk about Europe.
What? Nothing. Here's what Trump said tonight.
Do you, Mr. President, do you want Joe Biden to step aside? Do you care?
Well, we prepared for him, but I don't think it's going to matter. We had a great 4 years. Our border was the strongest ever. Our economy pre-COVID was incredible, the best ever.
Well, there it is. Okay. Your choice, of course. But who do you want Trump to pick as his vice presidential candidate? And then in a moment, Comer reveals, James Comer, that the White House physician was involved in Biden family business deals and demands he testifies. I'll tell you all about that coming up next. Is that White House doctor compromised? It's quite possible. Charlie in Roy City, you've called in at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Charlie, what's up? WBAP.
Yeah, I would pick Tulsi Gabbard as my VP. She's cut of the same cloth that he is, and I think she'd scare the hell out of the Democrats. She'd probably pull in some of the RFK Jr. Base as well.
Oh, that's interesting. That weird wild card vote, huh?
Yeah, and I think, I think she's a disruptor like Trump is, but she's obviously, she's younger. She's obviously a different demographic, but she's definitely a disruptor, and I think and I'm thinking beyond Trump as well. She could be president and has a solid background as far as I'm concerned in terms of looking power. Like, she took Kamala out here back in 2020. I think
definitely
like her.
You called her a what again? You called her a disruptor. And I think for that reason, she should not be the candidate, because disruptors are not good vice president. Vice presidential candidates need to complement the ticket and not get in the way. And that's why one of the things mentioned earlier was that Burgum would be a good complement to his Trump, because he'd be a balancing.
Well, remember now, the day Trump gets elected, he's going to be a lame duck. So
I understand that, but you don't want a disruptor with a disruptor. That's going to turn people off.
I disagree, but I appreciate you letting me call in and
well, thank you for calling. I appreciate you. All right, take care, Charlie. Yeah, 2 disruptors is non-electable, in my opinion. 1 disruptor is Trump. You don't want a second one. And I think that kind of defines itself right there. You don't want 2 disruptors on a ticket. Nobody likes the Trump disruptor part. Let me rephrase that. I like it, we like it, but nobody very few, I'll say, in the middle like the disruptor part. And moderate Democrats that might consider either not voting or might consider voting for Trump don't want 2 disruptors on the ticket. I guarantee you that. And that's the extra little edge we need, is a yin to the yang, in my strong opinion, which is why he picked Pence last time, which is why he'll pick somebody like that this time. Maybe Rubio. Who knows? It could be Tim Scott. We shall see, my friends. Okay. Now, what about this White House doctor? Is it true that he was involved in Biden business dealings? Yes, it is. Do you remember that there's so many scams the Biden family has done over the years? One of them is a scam with a health company called AmeriCorps. And they were going to be building hospitals, and they needed funding to build these hospitals. And now comes James Biden. And he said, quote, let me get this, go to this direct quote from Fox News today. The Biden name, that James Biden, according to testimony from other AmeriCorps employees, quote, Biden did not provide any services to the company, but instead promised that his, quote, Biden name could bring funding to the struggling hospital operator from the Middle East. One of the employees, Carol Fox, a Chapter 11 trustee for AmeriCorps, testified that the loan, James Biden got a $200,000, quote unquote, loan wired to him from the company in 2018. He then turned around and used that $200,000 wire to write a check out to Joe Biden. He gets a $200,000 wire from the company AmeriCorps. He immediately wires that same exact amount over to his brother, Joe Biden, which he labeled as, quote, loan repayment. There's no documents, there's no loan, there's no nothing. He just wrote that, okay? He also told these trustees and these employees at AmeriCorps, quote, the Biden name could bring in funding to the struggling hospital operator from the Middle East. He said, he, quote, first of all, the Chapter 11 trustee for AmeriCorps testified the loan was provided to Biden with no documentation in return for the promise of funding from the Middle East that never came. James said he made, quote, representations that his last name, Biden, could open doors and that he could obtain large investments from the Middle East based on his political connections. During James' interview with the House Intelligence Committee earlier this year, he said that Joe Biden's doctor, who's the one in the office right now in the White House, O'Connor, provided him counsel in connection with the alleged work he was performing for America. Oh, he was helping me. He's good. He's PTSD and stuff, so we needed him. Really has nothing to do with the fact that Nurse Jill, a.k.a. Dr. Jill, not a Dr. Jill Biden, loves him, and he's a family friend. He's a longtime family friend and doctor. Could that be why? It also notes that O'Connor, James Comer in his letter, states that Dr. O'Connor, along with Hunter Biden, joined a meeting with Jim Biden and the president of a hospital being acquired by AmeriCorps. Sorry, by the way, James Biden's work, quote unquote, which brought nothing, he said he'd bring investors from the Middle East, brought him more than $600,000 from this company. So that's why James Comer says the White House physician was involved in Biden family business deals, and he demands he testifies. So that's House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer demanding Dr. Kevin O'Connor. He has a week or two to show up and testify and produce documents. He says he was improperly influenced by his work with the Biden family with the company AmeriCorps. July 14th is when they're demanding he testify and bring all these documentation they're asking for. All right. Coming up next on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3, we are going to be talking about Democrats panicking and asking Joe Biden to resign. But Biden is power hungry, and not Nurse Jill, a.k.a. Dr. Jill, is not budging. All that's coming up next. Oh, and is Joe Biden using Kamala as insurance?